Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola, here at Jazz at Lincoln Center here in New York City. Trumpeter, composer, educator, and jazz advocate Jimmy Owens tonight is performing selections off his latest IPO Recordings release, The Monk Project, which is a tribute to the pianist and composer Thelonious Monk. Tonight we're going to sit down and talk about why he decided to record a project to the great master, as well as talk about another milestone in his career as one of this year's 2012 NEA Jazz Master inductees. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the sounds of Mr. Jimmy Owens tonight here at Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola here at Jazz at Lincoln Center. Congratulations on the brand new CD. Also, congratulations on being this year's 2012 NEA Jazz Masters inductee. How are you feeling with all this buzz going on right now? Because I can tell, man, that these next couple of weeks are going to be pretty crazy for you.
Oh, they have been crazy. I feel wonderful. I feel wonderful because, first of all, with the National Endowment for the Arts Jazz Masters selection, to be recognized for things that you've been doing that, in my case, I haven't been thinking about those particular things. I've just been thinking about what they do for my community, the jazz community, you know. So to be recognized for that is wonderful. And for my music, you know, because they've looked at my music. I'm the first jazz musician to be given the A.B. Spellman Jazz Advocates Award.
You know, this record is the third tribute record that you've done. The first two were the Thad Jones, the Mel Lewis, but this is Thelonious Monk. And what was it about this project that made you want to do this project? And also, people don't know that you have a very special connection to Monk also.
Well, first off, the reason for doing this is that Thelonious Monk is one of America's great composers. You know, we have Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn great composers that people know about, but many of the general public don't recognize Thelonious Monk as being the great composer. Jazz musicians do. Monk's music is in the repertoire of all jazz musicians. So that's what was very special about doing this project. There have been many Monk tributes over the years, recordings and live concerts. Matter of fact, I've done a few myself since 1982, since he died. And I've done them before when he was alive. So doing this project was very special to me because it allowed me to then take the Thelonious Monk compositions and try to get a different twist out of them from the standpoint of how these great musicians that I selected would perform them.
Well, you know, Monk, like Duke Ellington and some of the great jazz composers and musicians of their time and in their day, had all kinds of great compositions and suites. How did you go about selecting the songs for this project?
I just selected from the standpoint of compositions that, one, I really enjoyed, two, that had been recorded many times by other people, allowing me to then take those ideas that other people did with these recordings and do something a little different. So I came up with 12 compositions, of which we have 10 of them on this CD, The Monk Project. And maybe down the road I'll do another Thelonious Monk project where I'll add those compositions that I don't have on this CD. One of them is Round Midnight, which we will perform during this week. I do that very special with, it's a duo, Howard Johnson on tuba and myself on flugelhorn, round about midnight. And then the other composition is one that we will perform called Ask Me Now. And original composition that I wrote in dedication to Monk called Through Monk. So we will perform those this week at Dizzy's Club CocaCola, and we will probably put those on another CD, a tribute to Monk.
Grew up in the Bronx, and you've been known to be a dynamic educator as well as trumpet player. But what was it about the trumpet that you were like, okay, I gotta play this?
Well, I think being age of 10 years old, so this would take me to 1953, the sound and the television appearances of Louis Armstrong made a big difference, I'm sure. And that gave me the feeling of wanting to play the trumpet. And then when I grew up, my father, who was not a musician, played all of the great music in the house, And many times he'd pick me up and dance with me to this music. And there was a large mirror we had in the living room, and it was just a joy. I'm 4 or 5 years old to see him carrying me in his arms, dancing around with this music, listening to something like Trumpets No End by Duke Ellington, or Stompy Jones by Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday records. So I think the sound of the trumpet was pretty much put in my ear, and I loved the sound. So
one of your mentors and one of your heroes is, in fact, we just found out late last year that he just had surgery, Mr. Clark Terry. He's a guy that really kind of shaped and took you to a whole nother level as far as how you studied.
Well, Clark had always been a great friend of mine, and he was one of the people that helped me to get into the studio business, studio musician business, back in 1965, 66, when I came off the road. Just to be able to stay in New York and do the kinds of things that he was doing, television shows, recording sessions and whatnot. So he helped me with that. Really, a lot of my training and mindset came from a period earlier when I studied with Donald Byrd. Donald Byrd was a tremendous mentor to me, and still is in many respects, And now that we're both quote-unquote jazz masters, we should get along a lot better, It's, I recall not practicing the stuff that he gave me. I would practice it on Friday night and Saturday go to my lesson. This is when I was 15 years old. And one time he said, "Hey, man, our birthdays were the same day, December 9th, 11 years apart." And one time he pulled me aside and says, "Listen, man, there's 11 years between us. And one day, you and I going to be on the same bandstand trying to get the same gig. And I'm going to make sure that my 11 years gives me the gig and not you the gig." I went home and practiced my butt off from that day on.
Wycliffe,
yes, sir.
Jimmy is being acknowledged next week for his contributions to jazz, and he's going to be a jazz master. What does he mean to you?
Jimmy? Wow, that's a loaded question. I'm still finding out what Jimmy means to me wholeheartedly, because I know him as a musician. I also know him. He's sort of been a mentor when it comes to developing things for jazz musicians with the union and setting things up business-wise. So later on in life, we as musicians can take care of ourselves. So Jimmy has not only been an inspiration music-wise, but also business-wise. And that's what kind of stuck out most to me, because being in this, music is one thing, but it's a music business. And he's been really, really great in terms of turning a lot of the younger cats into how we can set things up for ourselves to take care of, to take care of ourselves and our families later on down the line. Musically, that goes without saying. I just learned recently that Louis Armstrong played with my favorite musician of all time, Louis Armstrong. He got a chance to play for him. And you have to know that to actually meet someone that met him or that has lived through so much of this music. You know, it's great. It's kind of hard to find the words, and you know, he's so young looking, so it's hard for me to look at Jimmy. It's hard to believe sometimes, but you know, he's lived this music, and in terms of being an NEA jazz master, it's something that's, you know, he's definitely well deserving, and in terms of what he's doing, I'm happy to mention his name anytime when it comes to talking about him as an inspiration for me musically and also business.
One of the most important parts of your lifelong work is your work with the Jazz Foundation of America, and that's why you are being acknowledged with being inducted with the NEA Jazz Masters this year. What is it about this program that is helping these musicians and also teachers of this music to live on and also keep the legacy of this going on?
Well, the Jazz Foundation, and specifically the Jazz Musician Emergency Fund, was started back in 1990 to aid jazz artists who were in need in some type of way. The need could have been a medical need. It could have been a career development problem, a financial need, such as when a jazz artist who doesn't have any type of health insurance, which many jazz artists were like that. When a jazz artist gets sick, he or she may not have money coming in, so consequently something as basic as a telephone, rent, or mortgage could get behind. And the Jazz Emergency Fund was set up to help in those instances. And many musicians, this was all confidential, but many musicians chose to speak out and talk about how the Jazz Foundation helped them in their time of need. The great baritone saxophonist Cecil Payne spoke about how he was down and out, had no money, he was eating out of cans when the Jazz Foundation came to his aid and provided him with a basic stipend that could help him. How one of our musicians who's performing with me this week, Howard Johnson, he spoke about how the Jazz Foundation came to his aid when he was in medical need. He had esophageal cancer, and we sent him to our hospital that we work with, Englewood Hospital in New Jersey, and he was taken care of. And he was taken care of in a very positive way that helped him to heal up. So that's what the Jazz Musician Emergency Fund of the Jazz Foundation was really about. Now, that is basically one of the areas that I hope that I'm being looked at from the standpoint of the National Endowment's Jazz Advocacy Award. But there's a foundation there of other things that I was a part of that was meant to help jazz artists and did help jazz artists. Back in 1969, we started an organization called the Collective Black Artists. And that organization put musicians to work with our ensemble that we started called the CBA Ensemble, and allowed many musicians to write music. We performed concerts. We did 5 years of 6 concerts a year at Town Hall that the CBA presented, you know, putting musicians to work. We started an educational institute where we taught aspiring professional musicians as well as professional musicians about the business aspects of the music industry, about how to better improve your improvisation, knowledge of jazz harmony. And this was taught by musicians who were very, very versed in those things. So I think that that's some of the other parts of the foundation, beside the Jazz Foundation of America, that they've managed to dig up and say, this is why Jimmy Owens deserves this wonderful award.
He's been a big help to everybody, educational-wise, for education. I think through his association with Dr. Billy Taylor. Dr. Billy Taylor kind of brought all of us up and helped us all along the way, and Jimmy was one of those people. But as well, Jimmy is also, quiet as he's kept, helped look out for a lot of the musicians, you know, keeping us intact with some of the things that need to be done so guys can take care of themselves, what organizations and programs out there to help guys out. You know, keeping everybody informed about the pension fund. So he's been helpful and important on many levels.
Kenny, you've known Jimmy for quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
What does he mean to you?
What does he mean to me? Well, I mean, in addition to being a fantastic musician, he's also a friend. We've known each other for, wow, 40-some years. You know, when we met, we had actually talked about doing a record, because we were both in our teens. We talked about doing a record using only guys who were under 21. The time got away from us because we weren't able to do it, but you know, Jimmy is a very, very important person.
Kenny, he's being inducted in your class, the Jazz Masters.
Oh yeah.
What does he mean to jazz music, and why is his legacy so important?
Well, he's left a lot. I mean, not only as a musician, as an educator, as an advocate for jazz musicians. So I think he rightly deserves to be recognized for that. And he's, like I said, he's been here for a long time.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at Dizzy's Club CocaCola, here at Jazz at Lincoln Center here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank Mr. Jimmy Owens for his time, as well as the staff and management here at Dizzy's Club CocaCola here at Jazz at Lincoln Center. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Until next time, peace.